Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on the CSBG IS report. For those who may not know me, I'm Katie Kajowski, NASCAS Research Director. Today we will be talking about the data submission process for the FY17 CSBG IS report. We're discussing the IS submission and data cleaning process, preparing to submit the IS survey. We'll discuss briefly the CSBG annual report, and we will also briefly touch on the Module 1 submission. So before we begin, I'd like to go over just a few housekeeping items. All attendees are on mute. If you have questions during the webinar, please feel free to ask them. Please use the chat option on the webinar toolbar. The toolbar on the right-hand side of your screen, where you'll see a text box where you can type a question. Please select all panelists to ensure that all of our presenters can see your questions. And we will read those questions aloud at the end of the webinar and throughout during specific Q&A portions of the webinar. In order to keep to our schedule, if we don't have time for all of the questions, we will compile those questions and post them to our website. Let's begin with the CSBG IS survey submission and data cleaning process. A general overview of the IS submission process. The Community Action Agency submits data to the state office. The state verifies and compiles all the Community Action Agency's data and submits it to NASCAS by March 31st. NASCAS then reviews and analyzes the data and sends the state a cleaning memo. This then addresses any questions on the cleaning memo by going back and contacting the Community Action Agencies. The state then provides those explanations to NASCAS and corrects any issues in the database. And finally, NASCAS compiles a corrected and verified data into the new CSBG annual report. Just last year, we have some changes because we are beginning to roll out the annual report. Module 1 started last year with the first submission of that module. Modules 2 through 4 will begin data collection for FY18 and won't be reported until March of 2019. Interim, we have an augmented version of CSBG annual IS survey. What that means is that state offices do not need to fill out Section A or Section C. They don't ever information CSBG agencies. And of course, CSBG eligible entities will complete Sections D, E, F, G, and the NPIs in the CSBG IS format. A reminder to everybody on the call, this is the final year for the CSBG IS report. So after submission in in March of 2018, we will be no longer collecting data in this particular format. Everybody should have either received their Access database at this point or confirmation of continuance of the use of smart forms. If you have not received your database yet, we'll have you contact Kyle Gasser, and I'll give you contact information for him at the end of this webinar. If states have received their CSBG IS database and would prefer to move to smart forms for this year, please feel free to contact us and we will walk you through that process. Every time you open up your database, you will see your home page. Clicking the main menu button on any screen will always take you back to this screen. There is a Save button. Access automatically saves all of the data that you entered. Come to this main menu, you must enter the state contact information first before you move forward. You can enter that state contact information one time. Once that's entered, you can't go back and change it. If you need to make a change to state contact information, please feel free to give myself a call or give Kyle Gasser a call, and we can help walk you through that. Also, this is an Access database. You can have only one person using it at a time. The data is saved automatically, but it's only one person who can be in the database and enter the data. assistance survey is another piece of information the state office will need to fill out. There are questions 1 through 8, as you can see some of them on this screen, and then a form that takes you through questions 9 through 15. You do the option to print the survey by clicking the print TTA survey at the bottom of the screen in the Access database. This is required to be completed. There is no specific order to completing it. This is one of the things that we'll check as we receive the databases. It's an often overlooked piece of the training of the CSBG IS Access database. We do know that there is some crossover between the TNTA survey and some of the information submitted in Module 1. Do request that you still complete this information in the IS Access database. We move forward to phasing out the Access database. This information will only be submitted in Module 1 in OLD. As we discussed, Sections A and C will not be reported in this IS survey. There is very similar information that state offices will be reporting in Module 1 of the annual report. The Module 1 has not changed from last year, and we will again touch on that very briefly at the end of this webinar. The webinar is intended to be specific to the CSBG IS submission process. Of these more administrative sections of the IS, only Section B will need to be completed, and we're requesting that states complete all of Section B. The screenshot of Section D, CSBG eligible entities will complete Section D and submit it to their state office. The state office will submit a selection of those narratives that are submitted to them. Please complete all narrative sections as you are able to. If they happen to be too lengthy for the fields that we allowed them here in this form, please upload the stories in a Word format to the submission form on our website. If possible, please do not use acronyms. That might be one of the things if we select your story to use for the annual report that we'll need to come back and ask you what those acronyms mean. This section is very important. As I mentioned, our annual report, but a lot of other publications that we produce and that your state offices produce and that local agencies produce. Stories are essential communication tools for helping the public and potential funders understand how CSBG works towards its many goals. When you're relating these stories and selecting which ones to choose, about the takeaways that you're giving the readers. What is the story that you are telling through the submissions of these narratives about community action in your state? We use stories for blog posts, at the request, data requests for various types of presentations and program promotion through Twitter, Facebook page, and in many other ways. So we'll move on to sections E through D. This is the agency level data that is recorded in the CSBG IS. This is a screenshot of Section E, which is CSBG expenditures by service category. So this is where agencies are reporting the amounts of CSBG expended during the program period. So this, in some cases, may cover multiple grants. All sections of the Access database, the blue screens, like you see here, are identified for data entry. The green screens, which we'll take a look at in a moment, are for viewing comparisons for year to year. If you're in a green screen, you're not able to enter data. You can only data in these blue screens. Expenditures will relate to direct program costs, which are incurred for the service delivery and management components within a particular program or project. And administrative costs, which you also report in this form, are the still executive functions that do not directly support a specific project or service. Again, this is all federal CSBG dollars and all expended during the program period. ensure that community action agencies report a total amount of CSBG funds spent on youth programs in those callouts in Section E. Youth, as a reminder, in this particular report is defined as individuals aged 12 through 18. We also ensure that community action agencies are reporting on the total amount of CSBG funds spent on senior programs. And for the purposes of this report, senior is defined as individuals aged 55 and up. And those call-out sections on Section E. Moving on to Section F. So in F, you're reporting the total agency budget during the reporting period. So F is allocated amounts, not expended. So that is the main difference between Section E and Section F. Section E is expended, Section F is allocated. All agencies, including public agencies, should report on everything under their CAA umbrella. The reason we ask for a picture of allocated funds in this section is so that we can get an idea of all the federal, state, local, and private funding available to the network during the program period. This all allows us to get a good idea of what is of the leveraging dollar amount. So this is how we come up with that leveraging dollar amount. Section F. Please note that when you're entering in the other resources boxes to include the CFDA number, if you don't include the CFDA number, you will see a red box there. You'll still be able to submit the form, but it will appear red and will line back and ask for the CFDA number. So just some things to look for as you're completing these forms. Section G is the client demographics. In Section G, report the total unduplicated count of program participants. These are the graphics for the entire agency, not just the programs funded in whole or in part by CSBG. So the graphics include folks that are serving in your weatherization programs, LIHEAP, programs that you're operating. You are to collect all data points on every single participant. For example, you may not collect all data points on food programs, right? The participants should be included in at least number 4 or 6 of this form. Note this is a place where we check against your NPIs. So there should be no NPI that exceeds the number in 3 through 6 of Section G. Thing to note on this form is that numbers 3 and 5 are the unduplicated number of families and or individuals about whom characteristics were obtained, and 4 and 6 are the unduplicated number of families or individuals about whom no characteristics were obtained. So in an example like the food programs where you may not collect all data points on all participants, you don't even collect any data points on them. You place those folks in 4 and 6. You have data points that you can collect, you would place them in the overall sections where you have characteristics to report in 3 and 5, and you would report the characteristics that you were able to obtain in the rest of the demographics form. To note in Section G is that question 10 is for the education levels of adults 24 years and older. This is the only question in Section G that specifies an age limit. Sources of family income, this form does not collect data on food stamps, Medicaid, LIHEAP, or any other in-kind benefit. We do not have this information here to number 14, even if your data collection system has it available. The total will calculate for items C through K at the bottom, and we do have certain checks built into this form. Note that CSBG, the eligibility limit for for CSBG 125% of FPL. However, it is recognized that other programs are operated at the community action agencies have higher income thresholds, and for that we want to collect data on. So we do want you to report if you are serving folks 126% of FPL and above. This gives us a picture of the entirety of the populations that you are serving and the programs that are helping them. So here's your data for sections E through G. Now what? Now I'm going to ask that you check to ensure that all data has been entered correctly. These are the comparison charts that I mentioned earlier come in handy where you can review the CSBG IS 17 report data against what you submitted in CSBG IS 16. If there are major differences, you can include in the comments section. I'm also going to take you through the data cleaning function later in the webinar. Another thing that you can do to check data is to review section G against census poverty data to ensure that your numbers are reasonable to the overall state of poverty in your state. The comparison data is located in the button that says Compare to 2016 data. This button is on every form that contains previous year's data. So it exists in sections E and F. It exists in all NPIs. When you click on it, you get to see a comparison from year to year. The comparisons include the percent changes, actual numerical changes from year to year. So in this, you can see if you're 100% difference, we would want you to provide a comment. If you're 200%, we would want you to provide a comment. If there's a large variance of any kind, we do want you to provide a comment. And all sections of the NDIs have these comparison screens in them. Also have data diagnostics that is another way to look at the same type of data, and we'll take a look at that a little bit later in the webinar. Before we move on to the NPIs, I see that we do have a question, so I am going to answer that. I mentioned that last year that they had an issue with section D, filling in the boxes and the data was not saving. Yes, you're correct. Last year there was a error in the section D form. We have corrected that error, and it does not exist in the FY17 databases. So you all should be good for entering section D data this year. Move along to the national performance indicators. So NPIs collect data on all of the agency's activities, not just CSBG funded activities, and that is true for all parts of the CSBG IS report. In 1.1, reports information on the number and percentage of low-income participants in community action employment initiatives who get a job or become self-employed. Please note the additional data diagnostics that are shown in red here. These are highlighting targeting. This is necessarily a data error. It's simply an indicator for you all using this database that the targeting is outside the recommended 80 to 120% range. Comment in the comments box is expected. You'll see these types of red flags through parts of the report. NPI 1.2, employment support. This section reports the number of low-income participants for barriers to initial or continuous employment are reduced or eliminated through assistance from communication. We have cross-references that you can see in the right-hand bottom of your screen. And these indicators are cross-referenced to 6.2 and 6.4. And what I mean by cross-referenced is those are reported in NPI 1.2 have very similar outcomes as 6.2 and 6.4. In 1.2, we are reporting people who are employable. These are employment supports. and 6.2 and 6.4, we are reporting outcomes and outputs for vulnerable populations who aren't necessarily employable. Yeah, 1.3. This is another place where you will see percentages flagged if they are outside of a certain range. Another data point in 1.3 that is often overlooked is column 5, the aggregate dollar amount. And that is one thing that in the data diagnostics is flagged, and if it's missing, we will come back during our data cleaning process and ask a follow-up question. Guys found in 1.3 are cross-referenced with 1.2, 3.2, and 6.4. This is the second portion of the indicator found in PI 1.3. In P1.2, community improvement and revitalization, this is recording an increase in or safeguarding of threatened opportunities and community resources or services for low-income people in the community as a result of community action projects, initiatives, or advocacy with other public and private agencies. Please note that in this set of indicators, the first column is the number of projects, and the second column is the number of opportunities created. For example, a housing program would be one project. If that housing program built 15 new apartments, then 15 would go in that second column. By 2.2 continues the community level outcomes in this particular report. This is quality of life and assets in low-income neighborhoods are improved by a community action initiative or advocacy. And this, just like in PI 2.1, has the two different columns. The first one is where the number of programs or initiatives are entered, and the second column is the number of assets that were created. In P.3, reports out about community engagement. This is the number of community members that were mobilized by community action, and then the volunteer hours donated to the agency. We do have a data check on the volunteer hours because every agency has board members, and board members volunteer. So if that is left blank, we do ask a follow-up question for the agency to consider the board members that have volunteered at their agency. In 3.1, community enhancement through maximum feasible participation. This is the total number of volunteer hours donated by low-income individuals to the community action agency. This is only the number of volunteer hours from individuals who are low income. By 3.2, community empowerment through maximum feasible participation. And this is the number of low-income people mobilized as a direct result of community action initiatives to engage in activities that support and promote own well-being and their community. This is reporting about the number of low-income people participating in formal committees or government or boards, tracking that type of work. 4.1, the number of organizations, public and private, that community action actually actively works with to expand resources and opportunities in order to achieve family and community outcomes. This also has two columns to report in. The first column is the unduplicated number of organizations, and that's just the number of entities that an agency works with. The second column is the number of partnerships. So that's the number of partnerships within each entity. So an agency might work with the Department of Education, that would be one organization. They might have 3 different partnerships with the Department of Education, so that would be 3. Report 1 in the first column and 3 in the second column. Agency development, MPI 5.1. This is where agencies are reporting out on the number of human capital resources available to the community action agency that increase agency capacity and achieve family and community outcomes. This is reporting on the number of certified community action professionals, Roma trainers, family development, the number of staff that are attending trainings, and the number of board members attending trainings, and then the hours for which they are in those trainings. And as a quick reminder, there are other categories in each of these insights. So if there's work being done that doesn't necessarily fit into the NPIs that are listed here, agencies are always welcome to report in the other category. NPI point 1, this is the number of vulnerable individuals receiving services from community action who maintain an independent living situation as a result of those services. Note that the numbers reported here should never exceed the number of seniors or persons with disability that's reported in Section G. This is the place where we often see data that doesn't align and is a common follow-up question on our data cleaning memos. 6.2 is emergency services. The individuals who sought emergency services and the number of those individuals for whom assistance was provided. So notice that there are 2 columns here in this reporting form. The first column is the number of individuals who were seeking assistance, and the second column is the number who received assistance for each of these data points. In 6.3, this is often where Head Start outcomes are reported. This form also has targeting flags, as you can see on your screen with the red in the 4th column. The number and percentage of all infants, children, youth, parents, and other adults participating in developmental or enrichment programs to achieve certain program goals. In 6.4, these are very similar indicators to those that you saw in NPI 1.2, but the difference, as I mentioned before, is that these are folks who are unable to work, such as perhaps maybe seniors or adults with disabilities, caregivers, or other persons for whom barriers to family stability are reduced or eliminated. And this form has 2 different columns. The first is the number of participants enrolled in a program, and then the second column reporting out on the number of participants who achieved an outcome. NPI 6.5 service counts. This is the only place in the CSBG IS report where you're reporting only counts of services. Foods, units of clothing, rides provided. We've also included pounds of food and information and referral calls. Does anybody have any questions? If you have any questions, please raise your hand and we will unmute you. Yes, we will be posting these slides to our website following the webinar, and we will be posting a recording of this webinar as well, more likely tomorrow because it takes a little bit of time for the recording to be saved. So we'll move to some tools and resources that exist in your Access database. Within the database, you have the comparisons between FY16 and FY17, you have diagnostic tools, you have a variety of reports, and also have some instructions in there. When we receive all databases from the state and NASCAP completes our data review, one of the primary tools that we use are the data diagnostic tools. As offices are reviewing this data, if you're also using those data diagnostic tools, you're catching probably 90% of any data anomalies that we would out of our office. It's a great tool. It's right there at your fingertips. There's a variety of reports. Again, it's comparing NPIs 1.2, 6.4, a lot of checks that I talked about between Section G and the NPIs. It's looking at some of the state administrative pieces. So there's a lot of neat resources in there. Of course, the I-16, FY17 comparisons that take you screen by screen through the differences of data between 16 and 17. Reports, we have reports by agency. We have reports at the state level. We have reports by section. So you can really drill down and get a lot of information out of there. That's where the state fact sheets live, the ones that you can see on our website. Unfortunately, in the Access database, we don't have them in color, but we produce those every year for all of the state offices and send those out when they're finalized. This is a screenshot of the data diagnostics that provides a check on variances, some of the logic checks, change from year to year, targeting, a variety of different ways of looking at the data. And this is the primary tool that the NASCAP staff use as we review the data. This is some of the available reports, sections E and G comparison reports, NPI reports, the fact sheet, data highlights are some of the data points that come from the state fact sheet. So if you haven't here and seen what's available, please do. There's a lot of information there that's right at your fingertips. Any of the local agencies that might be on the phone, you can always contact your state office and work with them if there's data that you need to get out of the database in certain ways. So let's look at the submission process. We'll submit the CSBG IS Access database through our online submission form as they have in years past. This is for states who have regular databases and also the smart form databases. All of the CSBG IS submission information is found under the CSBG IS tab on the left-hand side of your screen. Note it still says CSBG IS 2016 submission form because we aren't yet ready to accept 2017 databases, but we will very shortly in the next few weeks. This is where we have loaded the FY17 NPI forms and the FY17 section D through G forms. We also have a CSBG IS section A through G instruction manual and have an instruction manual for the NPIs. We have some IS tips, survey tips, and FAQs, some quick reference checklists, and some other tools. If there's anything that you're looking for that you can't find on this web page, please contact myself or contact Yasser, and we can help you locate it. States upload the FY17 IS database and any associated forms to that website. The states that are using smart forms, if you can, please do include all of the agency smart forms on this page. It's really useful to us. If there seems to be an error in the data, we can go back to the smart form and identify if it's an error perhaps in an upload or if it truly is an error in the actual data. Let us know when you upload that database how you would like to receive your data cleaning memo. We understand that there's a lot of barriers that states might have to accessing Dropbox or accepting the Access databases or just anything. So if you need this by email, a Dropbox, or if you might have some other type of data transfer that you need us to do. We are more than happy to we can make it work for you and make it easy on you. Once you submit that database, you'll receive a confirmation from NASCAP when all the information is received. As NASCAP receives this information, we will review all of databases. We will file a memo of any outstanding questions that we might have on the data, and again, this includes large variances, targeting items, or any other data anomalies. Many times in data cleaning, you said that significant change. What exactly does that mean? We do recommend a comment for variances over 99%, and the data itself will flag variances between 300% plus 100% or minus 75% change between years. However, understand that sometimes that means that the number is very small, that the percentage guideline really isn't that helpful. So we do understand that states have some discretion in this process. For example, if you're flagged and the change is from 10 people to 7 people, we wouldn't comment on something like that. It is only the difference of 3, and we do understand that. We're really looking for large variances in the data. Some resources that might be useful to you are, of course, this webinar and the slides, the different versions of the IS form, the instruction manual. There's also a lexicon on that page. We also have a storytelling guide, which may help guide you all as you're putting together your Section D forms. And we have a performance targeting manual. And again, it's all under the CSBG IS survey tab on our website. Oops. Reminder, if you have not yet received your FY17 database, please reach out to Kyle Gasser, and an email is on the screen. And before we move along, I am going to see if there's any questions. Talked about the state fact sheet being populated. We are working on finalizing, have finalized last year's data. We're actually working on 2 different reports right now. One is working in collaboration with OCS on the report to Congress, and we're working on the National CSBG annual report. And we put together the National CSBG annual report. That's when we create the state fact sheet. So we anticipate having all of that out and finalized by the end of this year. As always, if any state has any specific data requests before that, feel free to contact me, and if we can accommodate it, we absolutely will. So as I mentioned earlier in the webinar, this is the last year for the submission of the CSBG IS data, and we are moving forward to the CSBG annual report. Right now, all states have been collecting data for the new annual report. Just an example line for states that are on the federal fiscal year, which is October 1 through September 30th. We understand that we do have states, some of them who are on the July through June reporting period, that they began collecting data for the new annual report on July 1st of 2017. And of course, the folks that are on the federal fiscal year began collecting data on October 1st. And finally, we have our group of states who report on a January through December period. They will begin collecting data on January 1st. So this is the last submission of this IS data, and many of you have already moved on looking at the new annual report data. That data will be due on March 31st of 2019. And Module 1, a state module, which we'll talk about actually in just a second, will be submitted again, just like last year. It'll be submitted again this year, and that is due along with your CSBG IS survey on March 31st. As a quick reminder, states submit the CSBG Access Database to NASCAP that contains the IS survey, and submit Module 1 in OLDC directly to OCS. I'm going to touch briefly on Module 1, the State Administration Module, because that's also due along with the CSBG IS data on March 31st. So it is similar information that is collected in sections A through D of the CSBG IS. It is completed by state administrators. All information in the module is based on the federal fiscal year. So CSBG IS in 5 and modules 2 through 4 of the new report, which are reported on by program year. Module 1 is the federal fiscal year. Data auto-populated from the FY16 state plan. This module includes information on state administration of CSBG funding, use of those funds, discretionary dollars, and discretionary would be used for training and technical assistance. It'll report on the progress of eligible entities on organizational standards, the progress in meeting accountability measures related to monitoring, training, technical assistance, and other critical areas. We'll be providing more information to state offices, as will OCS, as we move closer to the submission date of Module 1. In Module 1, these are the sections, and as a reminder, this is completed in LDC, submitted to OCS, due to say as the CSBG IS report. And resources that are available in addition to Module 1 is we have a Module 1 Word document. We have an IS and CSBG annual report high-level crosswalk that takes you through the various modules and the sections and how they're related. An annotated version of the CSBG annual report, Module 1 instruction manual, and Module 1 FAQ. These count on our website. And as always, if you can't find anything, feel free to contact us, and we will locate it for you. Forget, database submission to NASCAP required by March 31st, but if you have data available, we will accept it as soon as you have it and begin our cleaning process. Is there any questions before we conclude this webinar? I don't see any other coming in. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day to talk about the CSBG IS submission process. Again, we will post this webinar and the PowerPoint to our website, and we will also include that in our shout out to the states next week. So please feel free to contact myself or Kyle Gasser with any questions on this process or the report in general. And we look forward to working with you on the final submission of the CSBG IS report. Thank you.